Good morning, class. Today we are working on Lesson 5 of Saxon Book 4, and today we'll be really reviewing ordinal numbers and a little bit with the calendar and dates. So if you were in my class last year, you have basically had this lesson before. This is a review of one of the first lessons that we do in Saxon Book 3. However, they try to make it just a little bit more in Saxon Book 4, so we are going to look at it again. So I'm going to leave it up to you whether or not you want to add this to your math dictionary. If you don't know what an ordinal number is, then you should put it in your dictionary. If you go, oh yeah, Mrs. Duarte, that's like 1st, 2nd, 8th, 16th, then you know what an ordinal number is, and I don't see any reason for you to need to have it in your dictionary. So, like I said, ordinal numbers are numbers that show order, and we say them by adding the little endings onto here. We could write first, but the abbreviation for that is to write the number 1 and then just add that little ST to it, okay? Same thing with second. We could write it out as a word, or we can just put a number 2 with the ND up there. We could write third, or just do the number 3 with the RD. And this is the typical ending that we'll see, the TH, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. You see a pattern there? 12th. Now, when we get to the 20s, we don't say 21th, we say 21st. So we take this first and just add a 20 in front of it. And then not 22nd, but 22nd. So that works for the 20s, 30s, 40s, and so on. Okay? So there's our kind of ordinal number review. We're going to look at this in some examples in just a second. But I want to move on to the second thing. If you don't know this, it should go in your math dictionary so that you have it as a reference. If you can tell me, oh yeah, a common year has 365 days. Sweet, you don't have to write it down. If you can tell me a leap year is when February 29th is added to the calendar, so therefore a leap year has 1 extra day for a total of 366. If you can explain that to me or to your parent, then you don't need to have this written down. Now, if what I just gave you is brand new information, then you definitely should write that down in your math dictionary so that you have it for a reference, because your homework is going to ask you about that, okay? So, if you need to get these down in your math dictionary, just hit pause, and we'll move on as soon as you're ready. Okay, our first question here has to do with kids standing in line. So the question says there are 10 children in the lunch line. Pedro is 4th in line. So let's say this is the door they're going to go out of. So this person's going to be 1st in line. Pedro's 4th. So which of my lovely stick figures should we name Pedro? This one? No, he's 1st. This one? Nope, she's 2nd. This one? She's 3rd. What comes after 3rd? 4th. So this guy right here, this is Pedro. We'll name him because we're going to look at him. So the question wants to know how many children are in front of Pedro. So if I'm Pedro standing here in line, how many kids are in front of me? Do we count Pedro in that number? We want to know who's in front of Pedro, not including Pedro. So we can count 1, 2, 3 kids. So folks, this type of problem is always better to draw it out. But I don't want to spend all that time to draw stick figures. Yeah, neither would I. If I were doing my homework, I'd want it to be as quick as possible. So maybe instead of the stick figures, You can just draw tally marks to represent your 10 kids in line. Watch how quick that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boom, couple seconds and you're done. And these tally marks would represent each person in line, so then I could use the picture to figure out the questions. This one, not too tough. How many kids are in front of Pedro? No big deal, there's no trick to that. Now they want to know how many kids are behind Pedro. Well, let me tell you what a lot of my students do if they don't draw the picture. They'll say, there's 10 kids. I figured out that 3 kids are in front of Pedro, so there must be 7 kids behind Pedro, because 10 minus 3 gives me 7. Yes, 10 minus 3 does give you 7, but you forgot that we want to know who's behind Pedro, so we're not going to include Pedro. Drawing the picture helps you kind of visualize that and remember that. So now we're looking at behind Pedro here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids behind Pedro, so that you would have the correct answer. Okay? Our next type of question says Andy is 13th in line. So I only have 10 kids here, so let me add a couple more. That's my 10th. So this would be 11, 12, 13th, and Andy is 13th, so we'll label this guy as Andy. Okay? Kwame is 3rd in line. So where's Kwame standing? She's up here at the front. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. We'll label this as Kwame. And the question wants to know how many students are in between Andy and Kwame. Where's Pedro? He's in between them, isn't he? Plus a whole bunch of other kids here. So are we going to count Kwame and Andy when we figure out how many kids are in between? No. So here's the second mistake that my students often make with this lesson if they don't draw the picture. They'll say, well, Andy's 13th and Kwame's 3rd, so there must be 10 kids in between. This is what students do who don't draw the picture. Now let me show you what students do who do draw the picture. They will circle all the kids in between Kwame and Andy, and then they count them. So count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Did I get the same answer here? No. Which one's correct? Are there 9 kids or are there 10 kids in between these two students? Look at the picture. The picture shows that there are only 9 kids. That's because when you take 13 and subtract 3, you're counting this 13th guy. Andy's counted there. We don't want to count Andy because he's not in between himself and Kwame. He is himself. So this type of problem, whenever they say there's people in line and you need to figure out who's in between these 2 kids, please draw the picture. Draw it out. It will help you get the correct answer. Okay? All right, so moving on from lines, now we're going to look at dates. I'll erase just a little bit of this so that you can focus over here on my dates. I have 2 dates, and once again, this is a review. You guys learned how to write dates like this last year, although we are going to add something. So this is 7/8/99. Who remembers what each of these numbers stand for? What do we put first? Do we put the day? Do we put the year? Do we put the month? What order is it? This way of writing the date is called the month, day, year format. So this tells us which month. The number 7 says we're looking for the 7th month. So if you don't have that memorized, that's okay. You just have to be able to go through the months and say, okay, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. There's 7 months. So what month was this? The 7th month, so it must be July. And then this represents the day, so it's July 8th. And this here represents the year. Last year I didn't really have you shorten it, but this year you're going to, or you may, if you'd like. You're absolutely okay to write the 4-digit year here, but sometimes we shorten it to just the last 2 digits. So this is 99. Am I talking about 2099 or 1999? Probably depends on the context of the problem. So let me read this problem to you. It says, Janae wrote her birth date as 7/8/99. So that's a big clue. Are there any kids who have been born in 2099? Remember, I'm filming this in the year 2020. So 2099 hasn't happened yet, which tells us that Janae was born in 1999. And we just shorten it to those last 2 digits, okay? All right, the next one, our date here is 4/29/06, and it says, Mr. Chitsley's driver's license expired on this date. Write the date using the name of the month and all 4 digits of the year. Okay, so we have to know what the 4th month is. Say them to yourself. January, February, March, April is the 4th month, so we're going to write the month. April. And then the day, April 29th. Oh, you know what? The comma doesn't go there, I'm sorry. It goes after the day. Month, day, comma. And then they want us to write the 4-digit year. So if this is when his driver's license expired, do we think it's 2006 or 1906? Well, since this is 2020, I'm thinking this was probably 2006. I don't know that they had driver's licenses in 1906. I doubt it. So, April 29th, 2006. I have a couple of lesson practice problems for you. They are on page 32 of your textbook. I'd like you to try them and have mom or dad check out the answers. There's just 3 quick word problems there having to do with the date, and don't forget to draw a picture for the line question. And then you can work on your written practice, which also starts on page 32. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.